You're listening to Keith Sports News. Hey, how's it going? Happy Friday. Welcome to KSN episode 39 in a big month for sports, the month of May. Also, my birthday is coming up. That's right. So, this episode will be a lot shorter than, I'm looking at the list. The last 7 episodes of KSN were pretty long ones. The last 30-minute episode was on April 11th. Which was almost a month ago. So yeah, this episode will be a quick one. I don't have that much news, but I do have some big news to talk about. All right. The big news that I heard earlier this week, and I might as well talk about that first, is the Kentucky Derby winner racehorse, Sovereignty horse. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know. For some reason, I can't pronounce that. Sovereignty. I feel like that's not how you pronounce it. But anyways, that racehorse will not be running in the Preakness in 1 week from Saturday. That's the Preakness, which is the second big horse racing event of the Triple Crown. Okay? So if a racehorse wins the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness 2 weeks later, and the Belmont 3 weeks after that, that racehorse wins the Triple Crown. So we will not be having a Triple Crown winner. Sometimes the owners and trainers, after a racehorse wins the Kentucky Derby, sometimes that they don't let that horse participate in the Preakness. It might have to do with the horse's health. Maybe the horse is not healthy enough to run in the Preakness, even though the Preakness is still like a week away, but it's not like it's tomorrow. It's next Saturday. Okay. And when I heard the news, it was on SiriusXM's Mad Dog Unleashed with Christopher Mad Dog Russo, one of my favorites to listen to. And that was the first thing that he basically talked about on his show earlier this week. It's funny because he was ranting. It's so funny when he rants. You know, he rants like a dog. He barks like a dog. He talks barking like a dog. I mean, that's how he got his nickname, Mad Dog, you know. So, basically, they didn't say why that racehorse won't be running in the Preakness. Let me see here. I'm looking it up right now to see if there is a reason why that racehorse won't be running in the Preakness. Oh, there's a question. It says, why is Sovereignty skipping Preakness? And it says, from the Washington Post, representatives of Rich Strike won the 2022 Kentucky Derby, that racehorse, the biggest upset of all time, said the Preakness, quote, didn't fit the 2022 Derby winner, which finished 6th in the Belmont Stakes a month after overcoming 80 to 1 odds at Churchill Downs. Well, that's a shame. Um, Obviously, a lot of people, when they see a Kentucky Derby winning racehorse, they want that racehorse to be running in the Preakness, so that way the Triple Crown possibility is still alive, but now it's no longer a possibility. Am I surprised? To be honest, not really, but I was hoping not to hear this news. But sometimes this happens. Sometimes this happens. Not every year, though. Most of the time, it usually doesn't happen. Most of the time, the Kentucky Derby winning racehorse will run in the Preakness. But, oh well. And this is why the Triple Crown is so tough. It's so tough to win it. People are saying that the Preakness should be a month after the Kentucky Derby, and the Belmont should be a month after the Preakness. I never really thought of that. Do I want it to be like that? Not really. But if they somehow decided to do it like that in the future, I'm not gonna get upset. I'll be like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. In 2020, never got to mention this. In 2020, they didn't have the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont Stakes at their usual times of the year. Because the Kentucky Derby, it's always on the first Saturday of May. Preakness is always 2 weeks later after the Derby, and the Belmont is always 3 weeks after the Preakness. Well, in 2020, it wasn't like that. The Belmont was first in 2020. Yeah, they basically did the opposite. But there was no fans in the stands, obviously, just like any other big sporting event. And I forgot when the Preakness was, but I know the Belmont was still in June. I think the Preakness was in August, I think, and which was like over a month later after the Belmont. And the Kentucky Derby, I believe, was on Labor Day weekend, the Saturday before Labor Day. I might be wrong, but yeah, it was kind of weird. It's not at their usual times of the year. You know how the Masters in golf, it's usually in, like, I think the second weekend of April. Well, in 2020, the Masters was in November. It really was. Yeah. So. But anyways, I will still watch the Preakness in 2 weeks. Or no, it's not 2 weeks anymore. It's in 1 week from Saturday, tomorrow. Okay? I will still watch it because I love NBC's coverage. Hopefully, we'll see Mike Tirico because last time he had like a nut allergy, so I'm sure he'll be back feeling better. So, oh yeah, I'm sniffing. Don't get the allergies now. And it's always around my birthday. Preakness is always around my birthday, so I have to keep that tradition going, And I might watch it live this time. Didn't get to watch the Kentucky Derby live. There's a chance I might watch the Preakness live. If I don't, then it's on Peacock. I have Peacock and I don't have to watch it live if I can't, which is great because I can always come back to it and watch it at another time. So, but there is a chance I might watch it live depending on what else is going on. All right. So, that's the big story. The Kentucky Derby winning racehorse will not be running in the Preakness. All right. So, the shirt that I'm wearing Look, it has some basketballs on it. It says, I don't know if I ever showed you this shirt before in this channel. I might have at least one time. Maybe it was back in March for March Madness, but I'm wearing this. It says Hoop. There it is. Get it? Like that song, right? You heard of that song? It's perfect. Yes. I'm wearing this because, obviously, the NBA playoffs are the big thing this week as well. Same with the NHL playoffs. So, how about we go through the NBA and NHL playoffs once again for round number 2. Let's go back to Monday, which was the last episode of KSN. Wow. In the East Conference, the semifinals, the New York Knicks beat the Boston Celtics in overtime in Boston by a score of 108 to 105. Wow. That is a huge win for the New York Knicks. And then later that night, the Denver Nuggets beat the Oklahoma City Thunder by 2 points, 121 to 119 in Oklahoma City. So that was game 1 for both of those games. Tuesday, the Indiana Pacers beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland again. That's right. Game 2 of this series, the Pacers won by a score of 120 to 119. Wow. No one thought, hardly anyone thought the Pacers would beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, would take the first 2 games of that series on the road. And now the next game, game 3, Indiana Pacers were at home. So I'm going to go through that game. I don't know if that was last night or tonight because I'm looking at these pretty much for the first time. And no, I didn't really watch any sports this week. But that's why I would listen to these sports talk radio shows so that they can tell me what's going on, okay? Which is great. Yeah. Pacers took the first 2 games on the road. That's huge. That's the other East Conference semifinal. The other West Conference semifinal, the Golden State Warriors beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota by a score of 99 to 88. However, another big news. I heard that Steph Curry is out. He's injured. I don't know if was he injured during game 1 or game 2? Let's look that up right now. But I think it might have been game 1 because I saw that on one of the podcast descriptions that I listened to. It says Golden State Warriors win, but Steph Curry injured. So that it might have been that game. It might have been that game. Oh, it says Steph Curry leaves Golden State Warriors game with hamstring injury. Oh, that is very, very unfortunate. Wow, Steph Curry, he's already 37 years old. People forget that he's been around in the NBA for many years. Not as long as LeBron James. Okay, you might ask me, do I think LeBron's going to come back next season? I think he will. This maybe one more year. I also think in tennis, I think next year will probably be Novak Djokovic's last year as well. That's my prediction. So we'll see how the Warriors do without Curry, because Curry is like the player on that team. Remember last year in the Olympics? He is the reason why the Team USA won the gold medal match. He is the reason Without him, they wouldn't have won that game. Yeah, that's how great this man is. To Wednesday. Wow. The New York Knicks beat the Boston Celtics again by a score of 91-90. I was actually, the other night I was messaging an old friend that used to be in the same school with me. He's not like a close friend of mine, but somehow I found his Instagram years ago. He says, Celtics suck. And I said to him, I messaged him, is that your favorite team? And he says, no, I hate the Celtics. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you're happy that they lost. So he lives in Vegas. Vegas doesn't have an NBA team, but I can see Vegas having a team probably in a couple of years. Maybe after the MLB's Athletics move to Vegas. That's my prediction. So, yeah, because I remember the Vegas got the Golden Knights of the NHL in their first season back in 2018. They were in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, how amazing is that? And how amazing is that the New York Knicks beat the Boston Celtics in Game 2 in Boston, just like the Indiana Pacers. They beat the Cleveland Cavaliers first 2 games on the road as well. Wow, this is honestly surprising. The Knicks beat the Celtics in Game 2 by a score of 91-90. And then in the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Denver Nuggets by a score of 149. Jeez, that's a lot of points in a playoff game, to 106. Thunder beat the Nuggets by 43 points. Wow. Okay, well that series is tied at 1 game apiece. And Thursday, the other night, the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Golden State Warriors by a score of 117-93. That series is tied at 1 apiece as well. The Timberwolves beat the Warriors by 24 points. So, yeah. Okay, so the last episode, if you were listening, I made my quick predictions on which teams do I think will be going to the final and which teams would win these series. I had the Celtics winning that series against the Knicks. I didn't predict how many games it'll end because I'm not a big NBA fan, so I didn't want to do that kind of prediction. I usually do that for the MLB, all right? But yeah, I had the Celtics beating the Knicks in that series. I had the Oklahoma City Thunder beating the Denver Nuggets. I also have the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the Indiana Pacers. And I have I believe I said I have the Minnesota Timberwolves beating the Golden State Warriors. So in my NBA conference final, in the East final, I have the Boston Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And in the West Conference final, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And in the NBA Finals, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I believe I said that I have the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the NBA championship. And I'm still going to stick to that, no matter what happens. Who knows, I might get all of these games wrong. We might get a Golden State Warriors versus Indiana Pacers NBA Finals, I would like to see the New York Knicks in the finals because they haven't won it in forever. 1973. Yeah. That's Stephen A. Smith's favorite team, whether you like him or not. I listen to his show, by the way, sometimes. And there's this New York sports talk show that I like to listen to as well, the Michael Kay Show. Michael Kay is the voice of the New York Yankees. He's the announcer that says, "See ya," whenever a Yankees player hits a home run. Or I think he does that for the visiting team as well. I don't know. To be honest, I have not watched any MLB games since opening day. But I listened to this one podcast called Baseball Tonight with Buster Olney. That's where I get my baseball news. Sometimes Christopher Mad Dog Russo also gives me baseball news, and a few others. And Michael Kay, the voice of the Yankees. I'll hear some Yankee news and some New York Mets news as well. So tonight is Game 3 of the East semifinals between the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Indiana Pacers. If the Pacers win this game, Game 3, that is insane. What if they sweep the Cavaliers? Sunday night would be Game 4 of the Cavs and the Pacers in Indiana. That's huge. That is huge. Listen to this. Their regular season record. The Cavaliers are 64-18. And the Pacers are 50-32. That's a 14-game difference. Cavaliers, they've won 14 games more than the Pacers. Wow. And then you got the West semifinal Game 3 between the Oklahoma City Thunder at the Denver Nuggets, series tied at 1 game apiece. Saturday afternoon, we have a game on ABC between the Boston Celtics at the New York Knicks. What if the Knicks win this game again, Game 3, and then they have a chance to sweep the Celtics on Monday night? And then Saturday night, Minnesota Timberwolves at the Golden State Warriors. And no Steph Curry. See how they do. The Timberwolves and the Warriors, their record is almost the exact same. The Timberwolves are 49-33, and the Warriors are 48-34. Timberwolves won one more game than the Warriors in the regular season. And the Boston Celtics are 61-21. The Knicks are 51-31. Celtics won 10 more games than the Knicks. All right. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with the NHL playoffs. Before I get into that, I watched the highlight video of Game 7 between the St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets. Yes. My gosh. Oh my gosh. What a game. What a game. I almost forgot to check it out, but good thing I remembered. It is crazy. How on earth did the St. Louis Blues blew that game? The Blues blew it. Yeah. But I wanted Winnipeg to win for a few reasons. Number one, I remember that the Winnipeg Jets were off to a fabulous, fantastic, magnificent start to the regular season. And I believe it was the best start in NHL history. They won a whole bunch of games in a row at the beginning of the season until they finally lost a game. Another reason why I want them to win is because I would love to see a Canadian team in the final. And I know that happened last year with Edmonton. And I get the Canadian channels, the Canadian sports channels, mainly TSN. And there's another one called Sportsnet. That's like the secondary. TSN's number 1, Sportsnet's number 2. But they're both great. They're both great networks. How about Kenny Albert? Kenny freaking Albert. Man, it's like he almost lost his voice when the Winnipeg Jets got the tying goal and the game-winning goal. Crowd went crazy. Crowd was loud, and there was a huge crowd outside of the arena. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. It's crazy. Jets, 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 Jets. No, not the other, not the other Jets, not the boring Jets, the fun Winnipeg Jets. Okay. The St. Louis Blues goalie, man, Bennington, I think that's his name. What a great goalie he is. Fantastic goalie. He was in the Four Nations face-off. Yeah, man. It's crazy, man. And it was weird that the Winnipeg Jets were wearing like blue uniforms. It's like, wait, is that St. Louis or Winnipeg? The Winnipeg Blues, the St. Louis Jets. So, yeah, that was an epic game. There's nothing like a Game 7. There's nothing like a Game 7 in hockey, basketball, and baseball, man. At this point, they're all a must-watch. So, if we get any Game 7s for the second round for both NBA and NHL, I will try to tune into those games live. All right? Now, to the NHL. Go back to Monday night. The East round, second round. Game 1, the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Florida Panthers by a score of 5-4 in Toronto. So Toronto took a 1-0 series lead. Tuesday, the other East second round, the Carolina Hurricanes beat the Washington Capitals in overtime by a score of 2-1. The Hurricanes lead that series 1-0. Later that night, the Edmonton Oilers beat the Vegas Golden Knights by a score of 4-2, and Edmonton leads that series 1-0. Wednesday night, the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Florida Panthers again by a score of 4-3, and the Maple Leafs have a 2-0 series lead. That's great. I will be rooting for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Can you imagine if we get a Maple Leafs versus Jets or a Maple Leafs versus Oilers final, an all-Canadian NHL Stanley Cup final? I hope that happens. I hope that happens, because if that happens, that means we're guaranteed to have a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. We shall see. But Winnipeg Jets, however, they lost to the Dallas Stars in Winnipeg by a score of 3-2. But that was game 1. That was tough, a tough battle. The Dallas Stars, I forgot to mention, they also had a huge Game 7 victory against the Colorado Avalanche. So yeah, we're getting the two Game 7 winning teams going at it. All right, that was Wednesday night. Last night, Thursday night, the Washington Capitals won Game 2 by a score of 3-1, and that series is tied at 1 game apiece. And the Edmonton Oilers beat the Vegas Golden State Warriors Knights. No. The Vegas Golden Knights by a score of 5-4 in overtime. Wow, Edmonton now takes a 2-0 series lead. So tonight will be... Oh, okay, so I guess they don't get 3 days off, or 2 days off in between for the traveling, because Toronto, they're the Maple Leafs Panthers series, Game 2, they were in Toronto. That was on Wednesday night, so I assume that usually they would get like 2 days off for traveling, and then, game 3 would be 3 days or 3 nights later after game 2. But no, that's not the case. Because that's a long flight from Toronto. You're going all the way down to South Florida. But that game is tonight. The Maple Leafs at the Panthers. It's a must-win for the Panthers at this point. I think they will win. I think the Panthers will win a couple of games here. The Stanley Cup champions. The Dallas Stars will be playing at the Winnipeg Jets for Game 2 of that series. And then Saturday will be the Washington Capitals at the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Vegas Golden Knights at the Edmonton Oilers. So yeah, Edmonton Oilers, they can win another game and be up 3-0. Wow. So if I have a chance, I'll probably tune into some of those games live this weekend if I remember. All right, that is the update on the NBA and NHL second round of the playoffs. Playoffs? Talking about playoffs? You're right. Okay. Now to the UFL. Week 7. This is what I'm kind of into. We got a game tonight between the DC Defenders, the 4-2 DC Defenders at the 1-5 San Antonio Brahmas. That game is tonight on Fox. I won't be able to watch that live, but I'm pretty sure the way San Antonio's been playing, they're probably going to get crushed again. However, their one win was against the DC Defenders at DC. And at the time, the DC Defenders were the only undefeated team. So after that game, man, I was like, wow, it's not easy betting on these UFL games. DC, they just lost last week against the Michigan Panthers, a tough loss. But man, I don't know what in the world happened to the Brahmas offense. Last week, scored 3 points. The week before, they scored 3 points again. But then the week before that, that was the game where they upset the DC Defenders. Well, I think the DC Defenders are going to win that game. I don't know. I'm sure San Antonio will score more than 3 points this time. Maybe 6. Will it be 2 field goals or a touchdown? Who knows? Saturday, a noon game, noon Central on Fox. The Michigan Panthers at the Arlington Renegades. That's an interesting matchup. I'm not going to be able to watch that game live as well. However, usually late at night, Fox Sports 1 or Fox Sports 2, they'll have like a replay coverage of their games. So if I get a chance, I might watch the replay. If not, then it'll have to be the highlight video. And I think I addressed this in the last episode. If you watch the UFL highlights on their YouTube channel, for some stupid reason, you know how when a team scores a touchdown, you have to go for the 1-point conversion, the 2-point conversion, or the 3-point conversion? For some reason, they don't show that. They don't even show the point attempt, the conversion attempt. Why? That's part of the game. They got to show that. And I would read the comments, and there's some comments that are saying, hey, wait a second, why aren't you showing that? Why aren't they showing the 2-point conversion, And I'm like, yeah, well, they need to. If you watch NFL or college football or CFL highlights, they don't show the PAT, extra point. The only time they show it is when they miss it. If they miss the extra point, they'll usually show that. in their highlight video. You know, there's no PAT in the UFL. And Sunday we got a doubleheader, and they usually do this lately. 11 a.m. game and a 2 p.m. game Central Time. It's because of Sunday night countdown, Sunday night baseball countdown at 5 p.m. Central. This is a big matchup. The Houston Roughnecks at the Birmingham Stallions. I will watch that game because Houston Roughnecks, they are the closest team to where I live. They're 3-3. The Birmingham Stallions are 4-2. Wait a second. Let me go back to the Panthers Renegades game. The Panthers are 4-2. The Renegades are 3-3. I did watch the DC Defenders against the Michigan Panthers last weekend. After that game, the Panthers look like they're the best team in the UFL. I don't know. It's at Arlington. I think the Panthers will win this game, but I'm not that confident, though. The only reason why I'm picking them to win is because of their performance last week. I think this game might be high scoring. Yeah, they have ESPN Bet. ESPN Bet's like a big thing now. I never actually use it. Never bet on any sports. I meant to say I have never bet on any sports. I'm not saying don't bet on sports. That's up to you. I might start getting into that at some point. I'm gonna make my own prediction though. The over under 42.5. I think I'm gonna take the over on that one. Defenders Brahmas 37.5. I'm gonna take the under on that one. I might as well make these predictions as well. The over or under. Okay, back to Sunday's games. Doubleheader. The Houston Roughnecks at the Birmingham Stallions. I'm gonna go with the Stallions because they're in Birmingham and they are the 3-time Spring Football League champs. 2022 and 2023 USFL champs and the 2024 UFL champs. This is a game that I will watch live. Well, probably not live, but I have ESPN Plus. I will watch it the same day. Okay? That is on Mother's Day. All right? The total, 38.5. I have the Stallions winning. But how much do I have them winning by? I think they'll win by 10 points. I'm going to take the over as well. And then the St. Louis Battlehawks at the Memphis Showboats. Battlehawks are 4-2. The Showboats are 1-5. This is the game. If you watch this game, if you're going to watch Battlehawks Showboats game, expect an empty stadium. I think the Showboats, I read that they have the least amount of attendance in the entire UFL league. So I'm probably not going to watch that game, mainly because of that. And it's also on Mother's Day. I usually have plans on that day. I'm going to take 38.5. I'm going to take the under on that one. I have the Battlehawks winning. So. And I do want the Battlehawks to go to the championship game. All right. There are my UFL predictions. Let me see if there's any other breaking news on my phone here. Nope. Don't really have any breaking news. But I do have some weird news in the MLB. What on earth happened to the Colorado Rockies? What the heck? Let me tell you their win-loss record. Okay, last year, the Chicago White Sox, they were the worst team. They broke the record for the most losses in modern era history. The White Sox, they're 10-28. 10 wins, 28 losses. The Rockies, 6 wins and 31 losses. And they are in the toughest division in the entire league. Wow. What a shame. What a shame for the Rockies. Dodgers, Padres, Giants. They're all neck and neck, and the Diamondbacks are not that far behind them. So, yeah. All right, guys. Enjoy your Mother's Day weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Thank you for listening to Keith Sports News.